now. Hi,
There we
Henry.
go. Hi,
Henry,
hello.
very, very, very good to see you.
It's good to
I,
see you too, man.
and it's
Yeah.
always years, right? Like
Oh,
between our
God.
meetings, or decades sometimes.
Well, it's what happens when you live on two different continents, you know? It's
Mhm.
like there's only what, 3,000, like 5,000 kilometers of ocean and another 1,500 kilometers of land. Yeah, that's all. So it happens. But it's really good to see you. And it's always a pleasure. Yeah, this is great. It's, yeah. I'm trying to remember. So what did I met you on, what was that King Crimson blog page thing back in the late 90s.
Yeah, it was Elephant Talk mailing list, right? That's what it was, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Elephant
yeah,
Talk. Yeah.
yeah.
Man, too long ago. I don't want to think about that. Makes me feel old. But yeah, no, things are great. We had some snow. It's melting. Life is okay. I had a class today just before I came here.
Hmm.
It was on new media.
Hmm.
So we talked about new media. I showed a couple really wild videos, and they were all amused. You
What
know,
is new media?
uh, basically the use of media in a way that is novel and different, and specifically fine art
Hmm.
in a fine art context.
Hmm.
So that's one of the classes that I teach this semester. The other one I teach is in sound synthesis. It's basically a class in electronic music, which I know a lot about. So
I know, I know. Yeah, I knew you originally as an artist, as a musician,
yeah.
and you sent me that wonderful record with the gold leaf
Oh yeah,
stuff
yeah. The
that you
copper.
did. Yeah, the copper.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That was my introduction to your work.
Oh wow. Yeah, that was Coronograph back in 2000, 2001.
Hmm.
Around then. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah. But no, that was a fun thing. I did it. That was a limited edition.
Hmm.
I only pressed 750 CDs, and I only made like 500 covers.
Hmm.
Took over the house for a few days and made a lot of those. But that was fun. That was a fun project. Yeah, I followed that with K2, which is available for download. Everything, well, it's all on my
Yeah.
Kether music on Bandcamp. It's all there. And but yeah, that was a real interesting piece because it was me just finally deciding to actually do an object that is reproducible and it was customized
Hmm.
because I used to do a lot of cassette stuff. So I do like a run of like 50 cassettes, and I would just and I made a custom cover for each cassette, so they all look completely different.
Yes.
I went to a yard sale, and this guy was selling literally a crate of National Geographic magazines.
Hmm.
So I just sat there for like a few weeks just watching TV and cutting pictures out of National Geographic. And then I got these folders and I just organized them like ocean, animals, mountains, industry, like that. So then I was able to and then I printed up the cassette J cards
Hmm.
and then just did the spray glue and then just put the picture on and then just trimmed it.
Wow.
And so while I'm watching television, I'm trimming this, and at the meantime, I had one of those dual head cassettes. So I just put like high speed copy, bang, and it had the auto reverse. So it just run through it, then bang, and then go back, and I'm done.
Hmm.
Put it together, throw it over there, put another blank in, hit that, spray, put the picture on, cut it. It was like that. It was like this kind of funny thing to do while I'm watching, I don't know, Star Trek or something.
It's a pretty progressive way of thinking about musical objects, right? To have unique packaging, and it's something that's come back. big time in the last 10 years, right?
Well, it's had to. It's
Yeah, I
really
know,
had
I
to.
know. Yeah, yeah. But it's not new, right? That's what
Oh
I'm trying
no.
to say. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, the old is the new.
Yeah. And that's an interesting discussion. But my inspiration for this were people like Soviet France,
Hmm.
and their covers were just amazing. I
Hmm.
mean, they did one. I forget the name of it. I think it was like Soviet songs and youth music,
Hmm.
and all the cassettes came in a clay box,
Hmm.
and in the box was a feather,
Hmm.
but the feather was from a seagull next to the Sellafield nuclear disaster. So you're getting this radioactive feather. Those guys were amazing. And then they did another one. Was it I forget which one, but it was basically the record album was made out of hessian burlap, and then it was painted with creosote, which is what they paint telephone poles with.
Hmm. Okay.
So the stuff is incredibly toxic.
Hmm.
It's just bad, you know. I love that shit. So that's what I took inspiration from. Only I tried to do something rather than be real aggressive like that. I wanted to take that and flip it into something beautiful.
Hmm.
And I have a background in doing calligraphy, and because I actually did that as a side business back in the mid '80s,
Hmm.
and I still do it once in a while, but not as much as I used to. But yeah, so I figured I could brush on glue and then smack the copper leaf, and then just do it again, let it all dry, and then brush it all off. And then I had rubber stamps made, so all of the text is rubber stamp
Hmm.
with the
Yes, sir.
stamp bang, like that. So that's how all that was done. It
I
was
still have that CD somewhere.
cool. Yeah, I don't have very many left. I think I only have like five,
Hmm.
5 or 6
That's
somewhere
that's
in.
that's that's a good sign.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've sold hundreds of them.
I think I still have 12,000 CDs in my basement.
Wow.
And no,
Okay.
not really. I think we got rid of some of them last year. We started, using a warehouse and kind of like a fulfillment company that does stuff for us, and we sent them quite a few um, crates of CDs, and they are
Yeah.
so the basement is not as full anymore. But it's one big shelf full of CDs. Um, and like my, given, that I've been recording and releasing music for 23 years, that's okay. It's okay to still have a
Yeah.
shelf full of CDs,
Oh,
my own
absolutely.
CDs.
Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Oh, so you're talking about downstairs. So I gather you're no longer in that little apartment off of Prince Lauer.
I'm still very close, but in a new house,
Oh,
one
cool.
one wonderful penthouse apartment, amazing place,
Nice.
and like Berlin is, and I think like yeah, I mean Toronto is probably worse. Um,
Oh yeah.
but it's tough, and we've been looking for 3 years,
Mm,
and then I think like actually COVID was in our favor. Um, like this
yeah.
place, we wouldn't even have looked for it. It's so great. We wouldn't have dared to look for something like this, and then it
Yeah.
just appeared like there are like these neighborhood apps. I don't know if you know about those. Like it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it's
We
an
have them
app.
here.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So and then this lady who used to live here said she needed a new renter, like that she could present to the owners, and it took like 3 4 hours, and it was clear that we'll get the place. It was amazing.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. The things here, rentals here are down,
Hmm.
and they're getting very cheap. well, not very cheap. They're less expensive than they used to be. But single family housing here, like our house, stupid expensive. It went up, I think, 8% last year.
Did you
And that
did you-
that was
did
on
you
top
did
of
you buy
12% the year before.
did you buy your house?
Oh yeah. When we left San Francisco, it was really funny. You remember the little house we had in San Francisco up on the hill?
Yes.
So we bought that place for like 326, and then we sold it for 800.
Good.
Yay! We bought this place for about 750. So we paid off our debts and bought a house, and we still have a mortgage. Just
Yeah.
because it's useful to do that.
Yes.
But no, and this house has been appraised, I think, at 1.7 million. It's just ridiculous. This is not. No,
It's not worth it.
no way.
Yeah.
But it's just what this town has done. Everything's just off the scale. But apartments are getting relatively inexpensive. Like it used to be, I think, a one bedroom was 2,100, and now it's down to I think about 1,700.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
So
still
this
expensive.
yeah, a little more expensive than here, just a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but things are good. But yeah, you talked about something that I find really fascinating. You talked about everything that's old is new again, and that's something that's really kind of important to me lately. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to the West End Electric album. I did.
Which one is that? I listened.
It's by a band called West End Electric, but it's actually just me.
Okay.
And it's on Bandcamp. It's on my Bandcamp, but as a separate band under Kether Records.
Okay.
Yeah, here I'll
Yeah,
send
just
you the.
send me a link.
Yeah. Here we go. Chat. There we go.
Oh yeah.
And I did this about a year ago.
No, I have not listened to this one.
Yeah, this actually has a rhythm in it and stuff. This is actually very much not ambient. And but it also points towards the kind of thing that I did with the Laraji kind of thing that I did with the zithers. It's kind of like that, only instead of listening to Laraji or something, I was listening to Boards of Canada. And so I was like putting my brain inside that space and trying to figure out how they do that, and what are the processes. I did a lot of research on their techniques. And so I made this record, and it's not Boards of Canada by any stretch. It's very different, but it's kind of like where if I inhabited that space, what would that be like? And so that was one of the little things that I had in my head. Oh, well, what would I do? And I have a history of doing this. So like I did In C by Terry Riley, and that's on my Array album. And then I on the album The Standard Model, I covered what was that? America the Beautiful, and then Oh Canada, and Discrete Music by Brian Eno. And that was a fun one because you might remember the article. This guy deconstructed discrete music. And so he had a little place you could download the patches for the synthy that he used.
Yeah.
And also the melodies he also put up as MIDI files. So I just took the MIDI files and then just assigned new sounds in a totally new soundscape. So it's much more lush. Because discrete music, I mean, let's be clear, it's very austere. There's not a lot in there. And because it's 30 minutes long, he couldn't put any low frequencies into it.
Yeah.
Because of the needle, you just can't do that. So it's all super mid-rangey. And so I made my version's like half the length, is like 16 minutes, and it's like full range of tonality and frequency. And so it's a lot more lush sounding. It's much more luxuriant, as opposed to the kind of austerity that Eno did. And
Yeah.
so that's what I like doing. I like taking things and then I'll just re-inhabit it, because I feel that's important. It's somebody said, I forget who it was, but music is only alive when people play it.
Yes. Hmm.
So, when's the last time somebody did a cover of discrete music? I don't know, never.
I don't
You
know.
know?
Maybe Bang on a Can did, or I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they did. Yeah, that's a good. Maybe they did, because I know they did music for airports.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. I haven't thought about it that way. That covering, like in pop music, what is called making a cover of a song, is very much like playing the music, like in classical, right?
yeah,
You're absolutely right. I haven't considered that. That's very
yeah.
true.
And then
Yeah,
all
that.
these people like Van Cliburn and all the famous classical musicians, they made a living doing covers.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and everything's different. You listen to one guy play Moonlight Sonata, somebody else plays Moonlight Sonata. They're totally different, but it's the same song.
Hey, is the app that you wrote for in C, is that still working
Oh
on
yeah,
the
it works on any iPad. You need an iPad,
yeah, okay.
and it comes in. You just use it, and you can play NC to your heart's content. I performed it. Well, you remember I was in Berlin and I did that, and
Yes, yeah.
oh god, I had the funniest experience with that. I was at a conference in New York where I was invited to perform, and everybody was talking about how important it is for the theoreticians to listen to artists, and we should do this. And so I said, cool, and great, because like right after this discussion, I'm going to be playing in C by Terry Riley on my on my little iPad.
Mhm.
And they're like, okay, cool. And as soon as it was over, everybody left
Mm.
to go to some other part of the conference.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The only people who were there was this one guy who I had been talking to earlier that day,
Mhm.
and three of my friends from New Jersey who drove all the way into New York City to just listen to me play and hang out with me.
It's that's the real life of a musician. That's
Oh
what it
yeah.
is like. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's easy to forget if you have a little bit of success. But I never forgot. I still make music that nobody wants to hear, and I'm quite happy about that.
Same here. Same here. It's like, okay, fine.
But that app was hilarious. I thought just the
Oh, thank
idea,
you.
the idea to that you could tweak the pitch and of the parts and stuff, like amazing, and like
And
just
mix it.
wacky
You
sounds,
can.
and you can mix it. And yes, I really thought that was amazing. And I had
Thank
it
you.
I had it on. I used to have an iPad, so I don't have one anymore. But
Yeah, I was talking with the guy who did the programming for it.
mhm.
I designed it, and I came up with it, and he's the one who did the C programming.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about doing another version,
Hmm.
because in 2025 it'll be the 60th anniversary or something. Yeah, the 60th, 1965 to whatever that is. I don't care. But anyway,
Hmm.
60 years,
Hmm.
which is going to be really amazing. And so I was thinking that might be worth an upgrade. Maybe I'll get somebody else, because he specializes in what's that, Objective C.
Mm-hmm.
which is for the Apple platform. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get it onto what's that? Android and other systems like that,
Yes. Oh.
and or even get a desktop version. That would be cool too. So maybe people with with a Chromebook could
Yeah. Yeah.
could do it. When that would be cool too. But but that'll take money and time and effort, and it's still a few years away, so I'm not going to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of where that project sits. But yeah, yeah, that was fun. I got a grant to do that too. It was kind of nice. It was like, I have an idea. I'd like to do NC. Da 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 da. Okay, here's $5,000. Go. So
Amazing,
I
man.
I just wrote a check and sent it to the programmer, and bingo, there it is. But yeah.
Do you have an overview over your um, over the works that you did over the years? Do you still remember every single thing you did?
Yes. Well, I've actually. It's so funny that you said that because I'm literally. I about 3 months ago I started taking stock of my stuff because I'm 62, guaranteed not to live forever, and so I've been thinking about not legacy concerns, but taking stock of where I've been to
Mm-hmm.
see where I'm going to go forward,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I started writing everything down, and my and that's what's great about my with Kether Records. It's basically everything. Uh, Here, I'll send that to you. The whole label is just
Yes.
me and my work, and so I have so like there's what I do under my own name. Then West End Electric, which is a new thing for me to work under. And then there's the various ensembles I've worked in, like MRW, Mars Warwick, CDW. SW was a thing that I did with Robin Story from Soviet France and Rapun.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a great guy, by the way. He's awesome. I love him to death. He's an excellent, excellent human being. And so what I did was I took his album Raising Earthly Spirits, and I turned it into The Burial of Alien Ghosts. And what I did was I took his entire record and I put it into Ableton Live. And then I said, right click, find harmony,
Mm-hmm.
transmit into Midi.
Mm-hmm.
Came back half an hour later. And of course, it's garbage, right? It's just total garbage because it's just like scattered. Because it like if there's like a little reverb twinkle, it sees that as a pitch, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So you just get this scatter. Because in Rapun, that stuff is like so heavily processed, and it lives in reverb tails, you know. It's just like this big sound, and so I was like, so it's just a colossal mess of MIDI all over the place, which is desirable because then I could just do a subtractive
Mm-hmm.
activity and pull stuff out and leave things behind and then reassign sounds. So I took what his was, digitized it, and then reinterpreted it. So I didn't really play anything. I just manipulated MIDI data. And because it's something that he and I are working together, that's the only thing that I charge for, really. It's that one. Any money that you put into that goes to shelter.uk and then to the Brunswick home here in Toronto. It's basically aid for the homeless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because I don't really charge for my stuff. A, because I'm a bit of a commie like that. I just don't care. And B, it's like this is where you and I have a really huge difference in terms of where our lives are at. Is that this is how you make a living. this is not how I make a living. I have a really good job and it pays the bills, you know?
Mm.
And so I don't, if I, let's say I charged, I don't know, $10 for every CD that's been downloaded. I think I did the math on this about 5 months ago. I think I would have made $4,000,
Yeah.
maybe 3,000 if I charged $10 a pop.
Congratulations. That's a lot of money.
Well, 10,000 Canadian.
I know. I'm kidding. I'm just saying it's incredibly hard even to make that much.
Oh
You know.
yeah.
Yeah. Like these days, it's yeah. But coming back to this idea where you were taking the record and extracting the MIDI, right? I do that with my own stuff. So I would program a generative MIDI thing, then bounce that to audio with reverb tails or whatever, and then I would use the extract, MIDI on the stuff that because I want as you say, I want those glitches, I want those, uh, you know, unpredictable glitches, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we are, I know, like we're basically the same person, right? Like we're made from the same clay, let's say, right? When it comes to our interests in art, and
Yeah.
it's funny because I think I've always been like an artist. Like the music I've been making, I've always seen that as some sort of fine art project. Um, but then when I met Renee, my ex-wife, and you met her, right,
Yes.
Renee, and then I started realizing, because she is an artist, performance artist and stuff, and then I realized, okay, well, what I'm doing here is actually more than just music. It's what people would call art. And then I started understanding why I wasn't successful with what I was doing, and it was good. It was wonderful, because I still can't be bothered to do stuff that people like. It's just impossible, and I don't know why I have some success. I don't even know why. But it's sort of like I feel like I'm blessed, I
Right.
can really do whatever I want. And like Tony Levin says that, like when we are on stage with Stickman, we don't, we just do whatever we want, and there's an audience. Like we could say there's at least 80 people, even in the smallest village, coming out, just because Tony was on the album So, and his bass was mixed very loud, right? Like you could say that that's the reason why Tony is popular, for many other reasons as well. But it's
Yeah.
it's sort of like an interesting world I live in, where it's like where art and trying to make money from it kind of meets, and it's interesting and it's challenging.
Yeah. Well, luckily you have like the super mad skills with your touch guitar and
Yeah, not only with the touch guitar, and I'm being serious. Like,
okay.
I have acquired skills in many different fields that are useful, to be proficient and efficient.
Cool.
It's and I find that really is a part of being successful in the field of media creation,
Yep.
right? That you
Yep.
you have a good workflow, and that you're
Mm-hmm.
also good with people. Like you can manage processes and manage people somewhat as well. And I think that really is a big plus if you want to put art out into the world that is also being consumed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, speaking of which, I finally got a multi-string guitar. Here, I'll
Hmm.
show you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
It's an
a
old
Ibanez.
Schecter.
Schecter. Okay.
Yeah. Schecter 8 string. It's got the blackout. What are the blackout pickups? I forget who made it. Not DiMarzio. Um,
I don't know.
I forget those guys. So it's a shredding guitar. It's for metal stuff.
Nice. Yeah.
But I've been using it because I just taped off the top, and so I've just been like practicing. That's what I love about your videos that you've been doing with Crowder,
Yes.
because I've been learning how to tap doing
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I just do. I'll do the scales and stuff, but you're showing really interesting and important techniques with those videos, and so I've been like studying those very closely.
Yeah, like my and this has been on my mind recently because I'm putting those videos out for free, like and it's basically like my very specialized knowledge that I'm sharing for free, and it's interesting to see how some people react to it. Some people don't understand that I'm basically sharing secrets, like if there is such a thing as a secret. What it means, what I mean by that is that I have over years of study found out what the problems are. Even the problems that I still have, like with almost 3 decades of playing that kind of instrument, like all of that is built into what I teach. So like when somebody starts learning from me, they, even after a few weeks, they already have a better technique than I will ever have. And that is my, and I don't know if you would agree with that as a teacher, as with the teaching that you do, but that's kind of like, yeah, probably not, but but
I don't,
for
well,
me,
no, it depends on what it is.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
there's some people who have definitely like by far exceeded what I ever told them ever, and then
yeah,
there's some
yeah,
people who are just kind of like, no, but that's okay.
yeah, sure, but yes, I agree. You can't expect everybody to pick up on it, but at least
Yeah.
I want to give people a chance. And that's why I'm like always so still excited like a child when I discover, say, an exercise that addresses a specific problem, that then kind of like brings people forward like 7 years into the future simply by practicing something for 3 weeks, right? Like
Yeah.
I have that sort of time scale to kind of judge how long things take, with this instrument, and so it's great. And Sean Crowder is a fantastic guy, and like we had the first meeting with another player, like distance. Yeah, we had distance between us, no problem. But 3 people, and we played together, and it was amazing. He started 6 weeks ago, and he was already playing with us. It was
Wow.
incredible. It was
That's
incredible.
great.
Yeah,
He's a talented guy. What can I say? But yeah, that's
yeah.
excellent, and a fine teacher. So there you go. What more do you want?
Uh, I mean, do I want to spend? Should I? I mean, I know USA, you have the advantage of having
Yeah.
a teaching job, and
Yeah.
you have what's it called? Tenure? Is that the word?
Tenure. Yes, I
And
have
yeah,
tenure.
so amazing. I mean, I envy you for that.
Oh.
On the other hand, I mean, as I have this somewhat like a vocation, right, to make music, do I really want to have a full-time job?
No.
Probably not.
No, no, at all. I mean, pretend that COVID goes away tomorrow. Just pretend.
Hmm.
And so the Stickmen start wiring up for a summer tour.
Hmm.
That's great. Let's say it gets extended into autumn.
Yeah.
Not me.
No.
I have to teach
Yeah.
class in September.
Hmm.
And then I have like August. August is nothing but like faculty meetings and planning for the next semester. It's a fucking nightmare. So so yeah, no. So like literally, I could never, because of where I'm at. I can't possibly even dream of living the life as you have it. And so it's huge trade offs. Massive trade offs. And but yeah, it was just like I've always made music that no one really wanted to listen to, and I got a lot of it just got soul crushing after a while. It's just like always working day jobs to keep a roof over my head, and then I just said, okay, if I'm gonna have a day job, I want a good day job. Damn it. I'm not going to drive around as a courier or something. I'm going to, I want something that's much more rewarding and certainly easier on my feet. And so that's when I started doing that. That was like in the mid 80s when I started sussing that out. And so I started working as a typographer and a calligrapher and doing that kind of thing. And then I got a type design. And then I worked at Apple for a while on the Final Cut Pro development team. And then I was at Napster, and that's a whole nother crazy story. Uh, and so I always had these really good jobs. And it was at Napster that actually that I realized that I got to change things. I was at an inflection point in my early 40s because, I could do, I made these beautiful paintings. I was doing these huge paintings. I was doing this amazing electronic music. None of that's really going to put food on the table. And the guy who was the CTO of the company that I was working at was 19 years old.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's just, uh huh.
Mhm.
It was a fine guy, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Sean Fanning was a perfectly decent human being. But I'm 42. This kid's literally half my age. And I just realized this is not a job for an old man.
Mhm. Mhm.
I need to now think about the second half of the game. So I figured, well, I could teach. I was doing some teaching on the side, like teaching classes in freehand and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So that was fine. So I enjoyed that. So I said, well, maybe I could do this full time. So I got my MFA, which is the bottom line, degree requirement.
Mhm.
And then I got a job in New Jersey, teaching in New Jersey. And that was fine. I got accepted to tenure track and all that. But then the government cut the budget. And so my job literally just vaporized. Everything just was disappeared. Went back to San Francisco, kept applying for jobs, and got this one in Toronto. And
Yeah.
that's how that literally happened. But it was a very conscious thing that I had to work very hard at. And it took many years. I mean, I started thinking about this in 2001, and I got tenure in 2015. So that was like a 14-year project,
I
you know.
I remember when you got the call to go to Toronto. I still
Yeah.
remember that. Which year was that?
2007.
Yeah. 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 Wow.
Yeah.
14 years.
Crazy, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I got to where I am, and so I feel very comfortable with where I am. I have a nice house. All this stuff is here for me now, and what's also really cool for me is that technology is finally catching up to where my head is at.
Hmm. I hear you. I hear you.
And that just makes my life so much easier. You know,
Mhm.
like I had to do all that. Like what's his name? Jacques Attali in his book Noise, the political economy of music. He says that the musicians are heralds. They
Mhm.
they for they are kind of like a heraldic force. So if you want to know where things are going, look what the musicians are doing now,
Mhm.
because that's where we're going next.
Yeah.
So the musicians herald new ages. The rock and roll heralded, the Beatles in 63, psychedelia in 65 heralded the revolutions of 68,
Hmm.
you know. The party music of the early 70s heralded the disco era,
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, the all that kind of stuff. So if you want to know where we're going, look at what the musicians are doing now. And that is really frightening because right now musicians are starving and it's horrible. So if musicians are the herald of the future's looking kind of grim. I hate to say it.
Yes, but I have the following question.
Sure.
So what about the musician is kind of predicting the future? Is it the state that they're in, let's say, or is it their work? Because in the case of what you said, the example of the Beatles, or it's actually the music. It's it's the music that carries the vibe, let's say. So if, and I'm just saying, like, if what you say is right, that the starving will have predictive qualities, let's say, right? Then probably would say that the starving has to somewhat show within the works of the musicians, and that in itself would be interesting to me to hear. I have to say,
Yes.
even if it means starving. Yeah, it.
I agree with you. That's really interesting. Well, that's a predictive thing that we can test,
Mhm.
and see where this goes. There's been some, and this also ties into something that you said earlier that I wanted to touch on, which is how the past is the future now,
Mhm.
and the past, like there's this constant farming of the old, and this was covered by Simon Reynolds in his book Retromania.
Mhm.
And that's a parallel book to the book Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher.
Mhm.
And Fisher has there's a video of Fisher. It's online on YouTube, where he says that if you listen to the music of today, there isn't anything coming out today. This is when he was speaking, say 20, I think it was like 2015, 2014, somewhere around there. There's nothing coming out today in 2015 or 2014 that wouldn't be completely understandable in 1995.
Mhm. That's what he said.
Yeah. And it's an interesting point because it's even worse today. Anything that comes out today would be perfectly understandable in 1995. There's almost,
But what is the definition of understandable?
well, it wouldn't be rejected. People would know what kind of music that is.
Mhm.
They'd be able to say, "Oh yeah, that's rap," or "Yeah, that's just crazy pop music," or "That's just prog," or whatever the filter is.
So
And
is that simply because there are millions of pigeonholes, or why?
he feels that it's politically determined and economically determined. Basically, in with the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, the only viable alternative to capitalism failed. And at the same time, you had what's his name, Fukuyama, declaring the end of history. That bourgeois democracy is the end point, and there's nowhere else to go. This is it. Get used to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was like right around 1989, 1990. Soviet Union falls in 91. And so what Fisher pointed out was right around 1990, in the mid 90s, between 93 and 97, it just sort of seized up. And culture just sort of put on the brakes and, dropped into second gear kind of thing, or drifted into neutral, really. And so as a consequence, everything is just constantly churning because there is no future. The future has been canceled.
Mhm.
There's no Star Trek, because Star Trek was communist, believe it or not. It was a communist view. There's no money, there's no work, people do whatever the fuck they want. If you want to go explore outer space, you join Starfleet. You don't get paid for it, you just go do it.
Mhm.
And that's canceled. The idea of the Jetsons, even working as much as the Jetsons do, which is like what I think like 10 hours a week, and they live in these sky buildings, and they have like flying cars. Yeah, that future's been canceled.
Mhm.
The only futures that haven't been canceled are the dystopian ones.
Mhm.
The only visions of a future are like Blade Runner, Aliens, the latest versions of Star Trek, which are just like brutal and violent. It's like a dystopian future.
Mhm.
Ender Game, like all that kind of stuff. What's that? Hunger Games. These are the visions of the future, and they're completely dystopian. So there is no positive future
Mhm.
to his view. And so because the future's been canceled, all you have left is your past. And so you mine the past, you bring it to the present, regurgitate it, bring it from the past, regurgitate it, and so that effectively explains vaporwave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that started in like 2008, 2009. Really hit the time in 2011, 2012. And it also goes for a lot of the stuff that's coming out today, like PC music and this kind of like future pop and future funk, this kind of stuff. It's all just looking back, and then they just process these ideas and make new ones. And so what I like to do with what I'm doing is do this in a very conscious way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if I'm going to take something from the past, I'm not gonna just make fun of it or parody it. I'm literally going to relive it and re-inhabit the space of the composer. So discrete music in C. The Zither project that I did, which is just reimagining Laraji. All that kind of, so that's where I'm kind of at right now, and that's why I hope that that there can be a new vision out of this, because until we get a new vision of a new future, a positive future, we're just going to be retreading the same old shit for the next 20 decades.
I find that fascinating for many reasons. So if you say that the only future that's not canceled is like a dystopian idea, or the idea of dystopia, right? What if we just say that's going to be the same for music? What is dystopian music? Because the dystopian music, as we know, I would say, is the music that nobody listens to. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So what would it take for popular culture to become 100% dystopian in its contents?
I don't know. Is that a place that we really want to go?
No, I don't know, but I'm just saying, if that's
Yeah.
the only thing that's left, if that's the only uncanceled future, then we have to take that into account as well, right? So maybe,
Yeah.
because if you say, like, if we want to, I don't know, I'm very happy to develop my own vision of the future, and I don't need anybody else to say,
Same here.
well, that was, but because you just, and I forgot the name of the guy, but you just mentioned this idea of the future is canceled, right? So, but what does that mean for the arts? I think it's an interesting question, and I'm not talking about the system that the arts exist in, but the actual works. Like, what will they be like? Is there going to be like a new kind of romanticism that kind of like tries to counteract the dystopia, or is there like real ugliness, like something that really tries to be, and to me, Einstürzen Neubauten come to mind, which is a band I love, and it's even their very early stuff, which is pretty much like the idea of sort of like a dystopian kind of like sound and expression, and I don't know, is that where we're going? What do you have a vision for future music that's not canceled?
Yeah, I've thought about this, and I'm just looking at where I don't know if I'm equipped to make that. That's the whole problem. I don't know if if it's in my DNA. My another important strand in my work is in 1985 I had a real crisis year. It was a really bad year. Like, many bad things happened, and so I ended up living in a Zen center, and I was just sitting there looking at a blank wall all day just to keep my sanity. And one of my roommates gave me a record, which I still have. It's in the other room. It's by a guy named Wadazumito Shuso. Well, at least that's what it says on the record. It's actually Wadazumi. and he played a hachiko, like this giant, huge, just this huge shakuhachi flute. And he was a Zen master, and that was his practice.
Mm-hmm.
He would just play the flute.
Yeah.
And that so inspired me that that's been another recurrent theme in my music, in my creativity. And I think that really came to the point in the zither studies with Raji, where it's distinctly, well, actually, in the one before that, the Covidian Meditations that I put out, the record before that, where I'm specifically using my music as a meditation process.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go into this sound and I find my way through the sound. And the sound just responds as part of the world. And so there's this this kind of a very centering and very, for want of a better word, spiritual kind of space. That's not the right word, but it'll do for now. And so that's a really important thing to me, because I think that as a musician, as we contact our work, we have to it comes out of some kind of place. It comes out of some kind of space. Robert Fripp will talk about, like the little fairy sitting on your shoulder or something like that, or like this kind of divinity that comes from above and into the musician, and and it comes through the musician. It's like that, only I'm not as metaphysical as that. I'm just I don't buy into that kind of division stuff, but I understand where that's coming from, and it's also something that's very inherent to my work, and that's what's so cool about the Laraji, the zither studies, is because I studied the two of the pieces. I'm actually playing along with Laraji on my keyboard. Not exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did the same thing that you just talked about, where you take that sound with the reverb tailings and all, and then put it through Midi and process it. Mm-hmm. And so you keep on doing this to me, because you and I are always working on these parallel tracks, just
Yes.
thousands of miles apart. And so that's how two of the tracks in the zither studies came out. Mm-hmm. And I just only, instead of assigning it to some other sound, I assigned it back to a zither, and just dumped a pile of processing, chorus effect and reverb and echo, and bingo, you get that. So I was dealing with that. Also, I remembered listening to Laraji's ambient album with Eno, and I could hear how Eno was playing with the EQ. Mm-hmm. And it's all handheld. You could tell that he's just sitting there doing this. There's something going on in there. And so I did that too, using the 8-band EQ in widget Ableton. So I was just moving a band around and playing with it and pulling it up and pulling it down and doing circles and stuff. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I did that too. So this is all a way of bringing me back into that sound. So I'm generating a sound much like, and I just saw Laraji perform on Facebook, and he was just inside his sound. He had his zither, and he's just playing, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's perfect. And so I was playing this keyboard here, like right there, and coming up with the same kinds of things. I was using a zither preset. I downloaded a zither instrument, so I was able to do that. You know what I mean? And so I was able to re-inhabit this space and go inside his music in a way that I couldn't if I tried to play it on guitar or piano or anything else, is to go inside that timbre and also the processing involved and just go inside that. And that's exactly what Wadazamito did with his flute. He just got inside his flute.
Hmm.
And that to me, and that's what I love about your stuff too, because I'll be listening to, oh, I don't know, like some like Trepanation or something, and I can hear you play, and I know you're in there.
Hmm.
You know, I can
Yes.
hear
Yeah.
you. I can hear you in there.
You know, Henry, the interesting thing is like I wouldn't know how to do it otherwise, right? Like what other way could I really have no idea if, what other way there could be to make art. Is there another way to even make art? Is there a different?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah, I'm
know.
sure. Yeah,
It's
well, no, I'm just saying. I'm
yeah,
sure there is, but I'd say like from my perspective, I can't imagine like how would I not be inside of it, right? Like,
yeah,
and there's the physical aspect to creating that sound. There's always a little bit of at least a little bit of physical interaction with, and and that is, I think we're mostly not aware how subtle the moves are, let's say, that make a piece what it is, right? Like it's
yeah,
like the subtlest thought or the subtlest move of a controller that makes all the difference, right? And
yeah.
and we really don't sometimes don't even know what kind of power we have there. But you did really great in avoiding my question about the vision of future music, right?
Oh well, like I'll back to that though. And so to me, I think that what we're seeing right now is kind of like a general reset in a lot of culture, and I think that my particular take and your particular take, like how you and I, we operate inside the music and we go through this.
Hmm.
I think that's one particular vision,
Hmm.
and I think it's a noble vision,
Hmm.
and it's a beautiful vision. It's this is something that we can take forward and become part of a lineage.
Hmm.
And if it's and there's been this all through the ages, from me to Wadazamito. Wadazamito goes back to other performers before. Most of them are nameless. They've just disappeared because they didn't write shit down.
Hmm.
And so I think that that's part of the this vision, this future that we can imagine. That's it, but that'll just be one. I don't think it's going to be like one truck. We're all going to get on the bus and go into the future. I think it's going to be a lot of people walking, a lot of people on bicycles, a lot of people driving cars, taking jet planes. I don't care. It's just a way to get into and out of this kind of pit that we're in. And I think that a lot of it is going to have to deal with the objective material conditions that people find themselves in. And once those really start to change, then we'll have the heralds, to say, "Oh, go there." And that's what I think is important. I think that there's a lot of people trying that. People talk about Sophie, God rest her soul, as being a future oriented artist. I don't. I'm not really there with that, but I understand the drive to talk about her in that regard. I think that what you're doing is exactly that. It's like it's a way to go into the future, but but there's got to be some way out of this capitalist realism. It's just because it just can't sustain itself, and so we need that
Yeah,
vision of a better world.
yeah, which is sort of not independent of well, it's a general future vision there. It's not just music, right? But
Hmm.
I still find the question interesting. So if we just assume again that we have um, cycles and like but there has been like this really intense change in culture, in musical culture, that came about by the ability to record analog first and then digitally.
Of
So
course.
like it's like two important events. So now that like the question is really like, were people already able to imagine that future, say in the late 1800s, for example, right? I don't know because I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are people who can answer this question, right? Like what kind of future vision did people have 140 years ago?
Right. Well,
It's and it's
140 years
and
ago.
you
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then we can say, okay, so what if we apply the same kind of thinking to today, and we see, okay, what kind of prediction can we make? Was it possible to predict analog recording techniques? Was digitization, digital technology, something that was predicted? And
Hmm.
that, well, and I'm not talking about scientists or like thinkers predicting that, but I'm talking about like there's like a general understanding of what may be possible. And I think that what in the end, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the arrogance that we have as humans, that we do believe that we understand, and saying something like there's no future, or the future has been canceled, that is
Hmm.
a little bit arrogant, because that
Hmm.
means that at least for me, the way it sounds like, it means like that we believe that we know what the possibilities are, and I don't think we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just like, was it you know was it possible to predict funk music? Like, when was the first
Yeah. That's a good question.
yeah.
Dot
So
dot dot dot.
so that's why I find this idea about like what is the future vision, or more precisely, what would future music sound like? Well, then the things that we can imagine probably mostly are things we've already heard, that we kind of like have
Hmm.
an idea what they could be, but we can't really imagine a qualitative change. That I think that would be I
Yeah.
don't
I
know.
don't know. I think that there's also a big problem, which is all the low hanging fruit is gone.
Hmm.
All the really easy melodies, they've been used because they're easy. you know, there's millions and millions of songs, and all those little millions and millions of melodies, they're just used up. So I think that one of the things we may need to look to is forgetting
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
a relinquishment of intellectual property to allow ourselves to reinvent
Hmm.
and to forget the and that could be the oh, that this is a weird. Now here's a weird. Okay, here's a weird kind of. I just thought of this. Like this weird dystopian, utopian vision. Because basically, we know that this stupid computer I'm using, the one you're using, this is garbage. It's just going to go away, and all the data on it is going to have to get stored someplace, and those storage devices will also go away. So basically, when people hundreds of years from now look back, this is going to be a dark age.
Hmm.
All of our conversation, all of our music, everything was wrapped up in this digital technology that no one can make sense of anymore because we don't have the tools for it. Much less be able to, and even if you did have the tools, you don't have the ability to interpret the file format or break the cryptography on it.
But you know what, Henry? But that's the current state of things.
Yeah,
Like, maybe that problem can be solved. And I
yeah,
know that you used to work on a project like that, right?
yeah,
Yeah. There you go.
yeah, and So so this becomes very, very interesting. So if this all sort of disappears, then we can't remember it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't written down in paper.
Mm-hmm.
The sheet music never existed. I mean, I dare you to find sheet music for Boards of Canada. You know, it's a dumb idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. So people will have to, but people will still be making melodies. They'll still be making harmonies. They'll still be making compositions. They'll still be singing and playing instruments. And they'll be allowed to reinvent over and over again the melodies that will all be reinterpreted according to the local requirements that are needed. So if it's whether it's through electronic instruments, which I doubt will exist, but if they do, then fine. If they don't, then you have all the acoustic instruments, which aren't going to go away. I mean, it's easy to make a flute. You know, you just cut reed and you blow into the reed. It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the flutes have been around since what? I think the oldest is like 42,000 years old or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like some crazy ancient bone flute from the caves.
Mm-hmm.
They found evidence for similar instruments, you know, drums and whatnot. So there's an ability to do this. So people, and music is innate. It's what we do. It's because we're human. So how we're able to do this in the future, that's the interesting thing. How can we envision that as a positive future and get out of this cul-de-sac of modernity, and worse is postmodernity?
I think that's why it's actually very important to make music with the technology that's available nowadays. Because let's just like, even if we have the forgetting, maybe we have like, we're building new structures in the brains of, you know, the people that will come after us, the generations that will come after us, and they will have like a built-in understanding for contemporary classical music. And
But here's even more. It's like what we were just talking about, like how the similarities between how you and I work. We sit inside our music.
Mhm.
That's not common.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of people, they'll say, I'm going to write a song. And so they think about writing a pop song. It has a very defined structure. You plug in your chord progressions, you write your lyrics, you get your middle eight.
Mhm.
You're done, right? Get an intro, get an outro, you know, and then you have a song. It may not be any good, but you keep on doing that over and over and over again, and eventually you get something that's passable. But that's not how you and I work.
Mhm.
You know, so we're inside this stuff, and I think that being inside music like that is something that is something that will go forward because it is the most innate form of music making. You know, the guy who made that bone flute 42,000 years ago,
Mhm.
he wasn't working with sheet music. You know, he was playing a flute. Now,
Mhm.
in what context he was playing it, I have no idea.
Mhm.
But my guess is that he had to practice it because he wants to play it because it's beautiful. So I think that that is kind of like the innate
You know,
practice of music.
that's also why I think, but I think that the humans of 20,000 years ago are not so much different from how we are nowadays.
Oh, at all, at
I,
all.
you know, it's just like you would still have to practice your flute, and if you wanted to play the same melody twice, you would have to know what you're doing. You would have to remember which fingers you put where, and
Yeah,
how hard you blow.
all that. Yeah, it's all there. It's the same thing,
Yes, yes,
you
yeah,
know. And
yeah.
so I feel that that's why I don't feel daunted
Mhm.
by what I'm doing, even though I know that I make very unpopular music. No one listens to this stuff, but you do, and I appreciate that.
Mhm.
But you know what I'm driving at, and so I don't feel uh, I'm on the wrong side of history. I feel that I'm doing the right thing at the right time. And that's another reason why I do electronic music, and I specifically do electronic music, is because it won't be remembered.
Yeah. Hmm.
This is music of today,
Yeah.
and it provides guidance
Hmm.
for today. And that's the key point. This is music for us, and I'm not making it just for me. I'm making it for everyone. So this way, perhaps by listening to wherever my mind goes in this music, that others can also find their way through it as well. And because if that can't happen, then there really is no point. Then that's your nihilism point. Then it's just like, okay, it doesn't fucking matter. But I do believe that that is possible, and the reason why I believe it's possible is because that's what people have been doing for the past 40,000 years.
Yeah. 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 And the aspect of you called it meditation, or you could just say like trance, trance state, which if we humans seem to enjoy, right? It's I think that that's really like the purpose of making music for me in the first place, because I get high, right? And and some people that listen to it, they get high as well. So, that's
Exactly.
that's kind of, and then behind that are concepts like maybe uh, healing, or like unity, or
Integrity and
integrity, like
yeah.
all these things that you could say are good,
Hmm.
and
Yeah. But I think that that's why I think that there is a that's why I feel confident about a future. A lot of people are not, but I feel that it just won't be anything that we imagine.
mhm,
It'll just be something completely different, like as Monty Python used to say. And now for
mhm,
something completely different. And I
mhm,
think that's exactly where it's going. We're just going to end up with something completely different from where we are. But it's not going to happen overnight. And
mhm,
that's why it's important for someone such as myself to be the foot soldier,
mhm,
you know, and practice this and keep this going and bring this sound into the world. And as long as people have access to the internet, they will have access to what I'm doing. If there's no internet, there will be digital copies that can be made. If there's no digital copies, then things get a little dicey. but, that's,
so that's
but
why
that's
it's
okay.
that's why it's good that I still have 12,000 copies of CDs in my basement, right?
Damn
No,
straight,
but there
buddy.
there won't be players though for the CDs.
Yeah, yeah. It's like this computer doesn't even have a drive on it.
Yeah.
I had to go buy one. It's like $40 or something from Amazon. But geez, but yeah. So what's next up? Speaking of music, so what's next on your? Well, actually, I'll tell you what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So I still have all that stuff you gave me,
Hmm.
and this talk has been really, really good. So it has inspired me to. I started working with some of it about 6 months ago
Hmm.
because I said it's been sitting there. I've been listening to it over and over again, and I tried to do something with it. And I can't touch that. It's just no, I can't touch that. No, I can't touch that. Then about 6 months ago, I said I'm going to start touching this, and so now I feel comfortable. Yeah, I'll just start grabbing it and wrestling this and find my way inside that, and that'll be
Wonderful.
good.
I can't even remember what I gave you because it's been 6 years.
Well, it's a bunch of soundscapey type stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what you're gonna do with that.
yeah, yeah. It'll be fun, and I'll throw it back at you. But but that's not the next thing I'm doing. The next thing I'm doing is to consolidate a bunch of the ideas that we just talked about.
Hmm.
So between the Covidian meditations, the zither studies, and the previous stuff, and also what's that? The West End Electric. Uh, how to uh, start integrating all of these different approaches. So this way, I will have a whole pile of brushes and canvases and paints and colors that
Hmm.
I can then bring into the stuff with you. So this
Hmm.
way, when I go into it, it'll be much more prepared and I can approach it with confidence.
Yeah, yeah. So you see, like one thing that I've been trying to do for, I would say, almost all my life is also to create some sort of music that doesn't feel like it's coming from me or even from anybody else, right?
Interesting. Oh, right, because of yeah, your automatic and your algorithmic compositions, right?
Yes, but you know that like within the world of algorithmic composition, there's a lot that sounds like something that you could actually come up with yourself, right? So then you kind of like have to dive deep and study and like find those gems that feel like they are constructs, let's say, that I wouldn't have found without using the process.
Right,
and
right.
and I'm still very much interested in exploring that field of music, where in the end, when people listen to it, they don't realize what the process was like, and it's very similar to what you do, but like I just have like my own idea of working purely on the, like you would say, on the MIDI data level, um, just to find these new ways to have evolving logic in music, right? And so, but I've like more and more, I've started to combine that with the other side of the coin, which is improvised music, which is like all about what human behavior is about, because like all the sounds I make, all the processes I use when playing live, when improvising live is totally me and restricted by me. And like combining these two things has been very interesting. And I've just gotten another commission to write for a mallet quartet, and I've already written a piece like about like 16 months ago for them. And so now there's a whole day of recording for my piece, and they said, okay, we have enough time, so you could write another piece. And so I had, the deadline was Sunday. So yesterday was the deadline for me to deliver the piece. And on Saturday morning, I had nothing.
Ouch.
I had nothing. And so I said, okay, I sent my family away, and I sat down in the afternoon and I looked through some old sketches that I had, made a couple decisions. 2 hours later, I called the guy who does the engraving of the scores for me. We went over the MIDI file I sent him, and the piece was done.
Wow. Awesome.
And that's how it usually works for me. Like, that's it's like the pieces, the ideas, they sort of like build up without actually taking a musical form for from sometimes many years, not in this case, but sometimes for many years. And then there's this process of catharsis, even I would say,
Yeah.
where the idea becomes something tangible, and like pitches written, something written down or recorded, or and and so yeah, I mean that's kind of like where I'm at, and I would very much like to apply these techniques to more larger or large traditional ensembles. So I like a choir. I would like to write a choir piece, or
Oh, that'd be great.
like a fully like an orchestral piece that's different from very different from the Modern 513 piece that I did, right? And so that's sort of like my interest. And then, yeah, yeah.
That's cool. Have you, in terms of algorithmic stuff, I was introduced to that by listening to Nick Didkovsky.
Mm-hmm.
He did a record called Beta 14 OK,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really wild. He had the computer algorithmically compose the music, and then he had it printed, like engraved, and then he gave it to his band and said play.
Mm-hmm.
And they recorded the band playing what the computer told them to do. And it's the most spastic, messed up music. It's hysterical. And so yeah, so that was my introduction to algorithmic systems. And he used a bunch of what are those called, Markov
Yeah.
Markov processes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a lot of syntactical type shifting. You know, like this is the part of the sentence that goes here. Only instead of a sentence, it's music. So you like do
Yeah.
that like that. But that's how I found out about it. So when you started working on Todd Morton, I was just like, ooh, yay! And I really love that piece. That's such a great piece of music.
You wrote the liner notes.
Yeah, yeah. That's how much I loved it. Yeah, I remember that. That was a great time. But yeah, I love yeah. So I'm really and when you said choir, I just thought, oh yeah, of course. Oh
Mm.
my God, yeah,
And
that would be gorgeous.
even an opera, like not a traditional opera, but you know, uh,
Yeah, I have a little person. I go ahead do an opera. I don't care, but I hate opera, so I just
yes, yes, I know what you mean, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's kind of what
yeah,
inspires me to write an opera, because it can be different. I really think
yeah,
it can be different. It can be more like a good movie or a good episode of a TV show. Like that's kind of like what I envision.
My only problem, I don't mind the music. The music's fine.
Hmm.
I don't mind the melodies. The melodies are fine. What I hate about standard opera is the voice.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
people bellowing.
yeah.
I can't. It's just I walk away. It just makes me filled with rage, and I don't know what it is. It's probably some deep psychological thing, some repressed childhood memory. I don't know, but when somebody puts on opera, I just like I walk out of the room.
I totally agree. I totally agree. But imagine you have David Sylvian singing, and right,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
that's kind of like what I mean, right?
Yeah,
I wouldn't be interested in adopting any of those cliches
yeah,
when it comes to the voices. That just doesn't make any
yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah,
It's
the only
it
operas I've ever been able to handle were like stuff like Philip Glass, for instance.
yeah, yeah,
You know, and
yeah.
Robert Wilson. That I can
Yeah.
handle a lot more easily.
But there you go. You know, like I use the word opera, and what it creates that sort of like expectation or image in one's mind, right?
Right.
And so maybe I should have used like a different, more flowery
Well,
way
no,
of
but that's a
describing.
good problem. Yeah, you know, it's a good problem. Like, what's that? What's that? Like, well, it hasn't done any great shakes because of people like John Adams. I mean, he writes wonderful music, but it's the same people from the stock opera company who come out and start yelling on stage, and it's just that doesn't help.
That's true. That's true. That's true. And that's where I think it is very necessary for modern artists that have some sort of like, let's say, crossover experience with genres of music, right? It's kind of educate the performers, which sounds like, again, sounds arrogant maybe, but no, I really mean it. Like if the string quartet, like the Matangi, the string quartet that played my string quartet, First of all, they did a great job in the first place, but I know that I could have just told them what I think they should do, right? And if I say no vibrato, then I mean no vibrato, right?
Right.
And I think it could be the same with professional singers. I think
Why
it's
not?
possible, but like I said at the beginning of our conversation, like it's not enough to be able to write good music. You also have to have some way to communicate um, what you want. That's also why I believe that recording technology is such a wonderful thing for music makers, because you can sort of create something that comes close to like a reference
Mm-hmm.
of what you really want. If
Mm-hmm.
you have a chance to record your own music, and then somebody can listen to it, and then know that no, I don't you don't sing it with that operatic voice. You sing it with, like,
The vernacular voice.
yes,
Yeah.
right. And I think that's probably where, like, some of the worlds that's where the world of popular music, let's say, and the classical world, that's where the biggest clashes are,
Mm-hmm.
in like, where these assumptions, and where basically also the whole educational process is basically being questioned. um
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so, but
Yeah.
I find that fascinating, and I think I'm very optimistic when it comes to that. I think there's been so much progress
Mm-hmm.
already, and unfortunately I'm not famous enough to be taken seriously. But I would really, really, really enjoy writing for, great performers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. I hope that
It can happen.
it can happen. Yes. In the
It can
in the
happen.
the dystopian future, I'm sure.
Actually, there was a comedian back in the 1980s, a woman named Judy Tenuta,
Mhm.
and she was just really rude, and she was very funny. And she's like, "Yeah, so like I was on this plane to Europe. Yeah, it could happen." So I always think of that. It's like, yeah, yeah, it could happen. Sure, why not? It's all good. No, I think that we'll just keep on doing what we're doing, and
Yeah.
pursue it. And you have a lot more fire under your butt to do it than I do. I mean, I have a job. I don't have to worry. But so I can just do my little world,
Hmm.
and I'm comfortable with that. It's taken me a long time to be able to just do that. Uh, and I'm very happy in my little music space. Uh, but I know that you have much bigger fish to fry. You are, I know that. I know that about you,
Hmm.
and that's a very great compliment
Thank you.
because you you have much bigger fish to fry, and so I think that you will go on and do that, and I want to hear that more than anything. It'd be fucking brilliant, man. Uh, I don't know what the dysfunction is in that way with the music world. It just strikes me as unbendingly stupid, frankly. Why this? There's all these silos, and everybody stays in their silo, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of a exchange out of that. And I just find that, and it works to the detriment, you
Yeah.
know. And it's kind and like you see, the thing is that the distinction between high art and low art was broken, like 40 years ago. I mean, when Laurie Anderson did "Oh Superman" and it went to like what number 2 in the UK. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
you know, and Wendy Carlos, the biggest selling record in classical music is "Switched on Bach."
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
so what does this tell you? You know, there's, and I think a lot of it has to do with class and power
Mhm.
and how people just build their walls around their class and their group, their in group, and in order to maintain power
Yeah.
in whatever little things. And because all the money for this is constantly cascading down into smaller numbers, the vibrance and the violence by which it is defended goes up. So like the smaller the stakes, the greater the anguish. You know, it's really weird, and I just find it sad and pathetic. But that's me.
I think the feature in which this shows the most is skepticism in people. Like when you are actually a person who is great at what you do, like you gonna run into walls because people are skeptics. That's kind of like how I see it. There's, like it's too good to be true that somebody would actually be a good writer, a good singer, and an astronaut, right? Like
Right.
it's very, very unlikely. And so like people are skeptical, right?
Yeah, they call it the Buckaroo Banzai problem.
Okay, really?
Oh, you ever see that movie?
I know.
Oh God, you got to see Buckaroo Banzai. I'll email a link to you. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, but I really believe that what you said, like people want to like just stay in power and like want to keep in their group where they have status and stuff like that. I think the way that it shows between individuals is skepticism. Like that's kind of like how because you somehow get to get pessimistic and skeptical, and it goes hand in hand. And I think that's really why if somebody says, okay, Marcus Reuter is a rock guitarist, right? They don't believe that Marcus can write great contemporary classical music. They just don't
Exactly.
believe it because they say it's impossible. Because like the idea probably is that you need to spend all your life sharpening your pencil and writing these really small, beautiful,
Right.
C sharps on paper, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And no, I think that's sort of like very much a result of the way that what the industrialization has brought, right? Like you're probably know much more about that than I do, but just this idea that a person only needs to have one skill and just go to the same factory every morning for like 45 years of their lives, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And do the same thing, get the money from the same source for 45 years. It's ridiculous. I mean, it wasn't like that before the industrialization. You had to go and find work, and we've been, we are in that post industrial, I don't know what the right word is, world for quite some time, right? And a lot of people they don't want to face that fact that just doesn't work like that anymore. You can't.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I mean, so that's why tenure is amazing, dude. It's unbelievable. Like that something like that still exists, right?
Yeah, I'm
it's
very
great.
happy it does because I'd be fucked otherwise. I'll tell you that much.
I know. Yeah, yeah. And for me, that basically means it's a constant hustle, right? That's my life.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I don't have work that maybe pays, I talk to guys like you.
That pays even less. Yeah, it's funny, but yeah, no, yeah, I know what you mean. There's examples too, like Frank Zappa. He did a bunch of classical music. Nobody paid attention. He was routinely dismissed, by the classical people. But damn, but because of him, that's one of the reasons why I listened to Edgar Varese. because he was a big Varese fan from as a little kid,
Hmm.
and I saw this is a great one. I saw Frank Zappa as the MC of an Edgar Varese concert in New York City.
Hmm.
And Varese at this point had been dead for a number of years, but his widow was there, and all her little blue-haired buddies were all in like the fourth row. And it was a classical music concert of music by Edgar Varese. And Frank comes out and he's like, da 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 da. So we're gonna listen. Somebody's, hey Frank, and he's like, yeah, that's my name. Shut up, asshole, like that. And he goes, and it goes on. And this woman came out to play Density 21.5 on the flute. And so she's dressed classic, evening gown, heels, flute, ready to play. She comes out. It was nothing but wolf whistles and, yeah, take off your shirt. Like this kind of like stuff. It's just assholes in the audience just being really abusive. And so she just turns beet red and she can't play, And so Frank comes out and he's like, listen, one more catcall, one more wolf whistle, show's over, you go home, we've only done 4 songs. You just wasted your money.
Hmm.
Okay? Concert over. I'm not going to tolerate it. Fuck you hippies. Like this. He was so enraged.
Hmm.
So he just like said, so now, then he turned to the woman, he's like, I'm sorry about this, but, they will behave. Thank you very much. And so he gets off. And she played, and it was beautiful, and everybody behaved after that. But why does it take like that? And A, and B, what is it with like him being spurned when he was advocating some of the most difficult music that the classical canon offers?
Because they can't play. They seriously, they can't play. I had this commission from an ensemble in northern Germany, and it was fucking horrible. I wrote a piece for them, and they just weren't able to play it. Anything that had a pulse, anything that had some sort of form that required work, sorry to say, that required to be on some sort of grid, just didn't work. And I said that before. I mean, I don't blame the musicians, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like blame the educational system that kind of like brings up a certain kind of musician that has no knowledge about how to play in time,
Mm-hmm.
that don't learn to listen properly to each other, and I mean, it sounds maybe extremely judgmentally because I mean it. And I feel bad for our society that something like that still happens. And I mean, we're basically just still talking about the same thing we talked about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, right.
But but Frank Zappa. Right? So I think like whenever you are a person, and this is again, like, you tell me what you think about it. If you're taking something seriously, and what I mean is like not necessarily yourself, but you're taking your work seriously.
Right,
You
right.
have like a certain ethic of working and like practicing or whatever, and like an actual practice of improving yourself as a composer, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
It's very unpopular to be like that. It's not something that, at least in certain cultures, it's really something people don't really appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
And I still find that fascinating. Also, that there's probably a word for that. Like in the U.S., for example, what is to be a nerd? Let's say, is that a good or is that a bad thing?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's double-edged.
It is, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because you could be a nerd and it's like so boring, or he's a nerd because he's into what I'm interested in.
or
you
it's
know.
a nerd and makes billions of money because of,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah. And that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
Yes, exactly.
God,
Yeah.
Zooks.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Henry, when did you start making electronic music?
Uh, well, that's a good question. In a concerted way, like I like saying, I'm now going to start making electronic music. That would be 1987. I bought. I was living with a girl, and she said she wanted to buy a house, and so she asked me what my credit score was,
Mhm.
and I said, "What the fuck is a credit score?" And she said, "Oh no, no, no." And I said, "Well, how do I get one?" She says, "Take out a loan, not a little one, a fairly substantial one,
Mhm.
and pay it back."
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Okay." So I already had a really good car. I had a '72 Nova. This thing was a fire-breathing monster of a car. Uh, you know, we were good. We had a nice place to live with her, so we were doing fine with housing. And I figured so I'll take out a loan for $5,000. What am I going to do with $5,000? And I thought about the stuff that I really like to do and I've always wanted to do. And I figured, I know, I'll build an electronic music studio. And so I got my check for $5,000 and I went up to Veneman's Music outside of Washington, D.C. and in Maryland. And I just said, I want that, and this one too. And went home, put it together, and I had an electronic music studio. And then that's where the first album, Electronic Etudes, came from. And as well as Meta Wind, the second album. They're basically the same record, only spread across two albums, really.
Mhm.
And I started learning how to play keyboards. I still can't play them very well in a standard sense, but I can play well enough to get what I need done. But
Mhm.
you can hear me playing. It's like all this kind of like weird stuff, you know. So I was interested in playing a lot of medieval music, sacred harp music. I was interested in all these kind of bizarre ways of playing, and that's when I started doing electronic music in a concerted way. Prior to that, when I was living at the Zen Center, a friend of mine lent me an ARP Odyssey,
Mhm.
and so I played that during the winter, and that was really nice. Bob Boylan, bless his soul, he's a great guy, Bob, and so he lent me his synth. I gave it back. Before that, I was in a prog rock band back in the late '70s. We did covers, prog rock cover band at the height of punk rock. We played out about once every 6 months if we were lucky. Uh, but we did great covers. I played bass back then,
Mhm.
and so we did Yes, Genesis, King Crimson, Gentle Giant, Beatles, that kind of stuff, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And the keyboard, we had a keyboard player, and he had keyboards, so I got to play with his Freeman string symphonizer,
Mhm. Did it sound
and
good?
it sounded like a cheap string ensemble. You know, it was
Mhm.
just like a Selena or anything else, really.
Mhm.
But it was cool. It was cool. And then the Octave Cat, it's like this little monophonic, kind of quasi ARP like
Mhm.
synth. And then he also had a Helpenstiel electric piano and Yamaha organ. And so I go there like before practice started. I would like mess around on his keyboards and stuff. And then when I went to university, I took a class in electronic music with Larry Johnson, and he had two VCS3s and two 4-track decks. One was a TAC, one was a decoder, and we had a lot of fun with that, making tape loops, doing the time lag accumulator thing,
Mhm.
you know, and which was really fun because you put both tape decks on movable carts,
Mhm.
and then you change the speeds. So
Hmm.
the carts come together, and then you like stop, and then you like reverse it, and then they go, and then it's like, and then it all comes out at different speeds and chopped up. Is beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that was a lot of fun. So that's where so in high school, we had the keyboard player in the band. First year university, I got introduced to the VCS3, which blew my mind. And then when I got back from Boston, because it was like the middle of second semester, I ran out of money, and so I was like shoplifting cheese and shit to survive. It was bad. It was real bad. So I like, mommy, I'm coming home. I can't handle this. So I'm like, okay. So I came back to New Jersey, and then when I went to Rutgers, they had an ARP 2500 there, and an analog emu on Douglas campus. I didn't really take any classes using those things, but I did take a class in music, kind of like performance, avant-garde performance stuff. So we would bang rocks together and just do crazy stuff. It was fun.
Hmm.
Uh, and then I was in that band again. So I was playing bass with those guys, and then I stopped doing that, moved to DC, lived in hell for several years, and then got the studio that I talked to you about, and that's my history about that. All of this is getting written down. Remember we talked about this when we first started. I said I'm writing all this down.
Yes,
Yes, yes, yes. So
you
I
are.
will make sure that. In fact, you can write the. Yeah, I'll send you can write the blurb notes or something like that.
I'd love to.
That'd be great. That'd be
Yes,
killer.
yes.
But yeah, so that's how I got started,
Hmm.
and I really started getting into electronic music obviously in '87 because I got the Atari 1040 because it had a built-in Midi, which is amazing.
I had it too.
Oh, isn't
I
that a great
I got
machine?
I think I got it in '86 even.
Mm-hmm.
When was it released?
85, 86, right
Yeah,
around then.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that was just a delightful computer. I had that. I used it well into the 1990s, and then I got a Mac,
Hmm.
and and then I started doing stuff in the box more, and then but I've had a bunch of synths. I bought a two DSS ones,
Hmm. Hmm.
one for parts half the time, but that's okay. TX81Z, a DX11,
Hmm.
the Prophet 2002, the Yamaha CS2X,
Hmm.
and that's probably about it as far as. Oh, in the oh yeah, it said TX81Z already. Yeah, that was about it as far as hardware goes.
Hmm.
And then right around 2002 ish, I just stopped using hardware that much. I have an M1 over here, an M1R, and then this old U220. They're both terrible, but well, the M1's okay, but the U220 is terrible. So I still have hardware, but I don't really use it. I basically do everything in the box. I have this Novation Impulse
Hmm.
keyboard. It's fine. It works. It does the job. That's all I need. And so that's basically where I'm at with that. I have some outboard gear like this Novation launch pad,
Yeah.
and I have the Akai APC 40, the button mixer thing,
Yes.
and that's about it. Yeah, it's all pretty stripped down. I have a Motu interface,
Hmm.
and then these speakers, the Event PS8s.
Cool. I mean, that's all you need. I mean, I basically always just work on my laptop, plugging the headphones into headphones out. That's all I use 99% of the time. And like the other 1% of the time when I need to connect my guitar, I use an audio interface. And like there's so much about music production nowadays is about the treatment of stuff, and the capturing is really. And I mean, like, I'm not saying that it's like that for everybody, but for me, as I don't know what kind of musician am I, I don't know, but for me, it's really that's the easy part, right? Like I
Hmm.
just make one performance and that's it. Like first take. Like I don't usually try to better myself,
Hmm.
or and yeah. So that's why for me the laptop that's really my studio,
Yeah.
and it's great. But like you said, you mentioning the Atari ST 1040, right? It was called.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was amazing because there was a German company that wrote that had released a great version of BASIC, of the programming language, but
Oh,
it was more like a Turbo Pascal
okay.
thing, and it was called GFA Basic. and
Wow.
and it was that was like my entry into programming on the computer. So I was writing my first generative music, algorithms in BASIC in like 86, 87 or something like
Wow.
that. And then like the problem that then in the early 90s you had like PCs, right? And and the capabilities of just putting out like Midi, they kind of like went over my head. Like it was suddenly it wasn't available anymore, to simply print something to the MIDI port, right? Like,
Right.
yeah, and so that's how I kind of like lost contact with programming in
Hmm.
music directly, let's say. And only
Yeah.
only recently, actually, just before like a year or two before the string quartet came out, so really like 5 years ago maybe, I found a guy who actually helped me kind of like rewrite the my old stuff
Excellent.
in Python. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I oh, by the way, just what interface do you use?
I mostly use a Focusrite, like a
Okay.
Scarlett, like a small one,
They're great. They're
just
fine.
four
Yeah.
inputs and four outputs, or like.
Yeah, I have the Motu Ultralight.
Yeah,
It's basically the same thing. It's about the
I still use that. I still have the both Bernard and still have the Focusrite. No, the Motu, the first one, the Ultralight,
yeah.
the very first one. I don't think we ever even updated the software on it. So,
Ooh, I
and
have the
it's still
Mark
working.
III.
You have the Mark. No, we have the Mark Zero.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Holy shit! It's 5 o'clock.
yeah. We spoke
Oh,
for 2 hours, man.
time flies.
Yes,
This
and
is amazing.
really, to me, it feels like I'm only starting to really get into the really interesting stuff with you. Like maybe we should just repeat this.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd
yeah,
be fine. Let's let it bubble for a couple of weeks.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and then we'll have another convo. That'll be great.
yes. So
Yeah.
how old is your kid now?
23. Big kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's actually with us right now. She's going to school at Concordia,
Hmm.
but roommates, different schedules. So she's home alone with her cat. So she's here with us. It's much nicer. You know, the food is good. you know, so the
Is
company's
she
nice.
still an art student?
No, no, no. She left that and now she's in this thing called human relations. It's kind of like a sociology,
Hmm.
psychology kind of thing that they teach there. It's a really good program. I
Hmm.
met some people where I teach who went through that program. They said it's awesome and they really enjoy it, and it made their careers for what they do. So I'm like, cool. And she loves it. She's really having great classes. She's studying really great courses. It's just like, yeah. One of them was on cults,
Hmm.
and
Nice.
yeah. And then last year she had a course on the Holocaust or something, just like really intense stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah, she's doing great.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm really happy. And Beth is fine. She's still doing her work from home over the internet with doing project management, and she's at working with Bell right now.
Hmm. And
And
still sailing.
oh yeah, yeah. Last year it's been kind of spooky because of COVID and stuff, but she got
Hmm.
to do some sailing last
Hmm.
year. It was delayed because they couldn't get everybody into the because normally they just do all the boats at once.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so there's a big crowd of people, and you can't do that. So they had to stagger how everything was released into the water and blah blah blah. So it was a mess. Hopefully this year it'll be nicer, a little bit easier that way.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, we did some sailing. I posted some pictures on Facebook of us, sailing out on Lake Ontario. It was beautiful.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, she's
Wonderful.
fine, and so
Yeah.
everything here is just cooking along. And so your baby's now what, like a year now?
16 months.
16 months. Whoa,
Yeah.
old.
Old, really old. Like she is a real person already.
And I'm blanking
It's
on her name.
Uma.
Uma, that's right. Uma, I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah, as
Yeah.
in Uma Thurman.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the inspiration, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's kids are so weird. It's like, one day you're changing their diapers, the next day they're hitting you up for beer money and keys to go wreck the car. It's just
I hear that all the time from other dads, and or other parents, and now I see that it really feels like that, and
yeah.
like the misunderstanding that I always had, like, is when other people say, okay, it goes so fast, right? Like that, it actually feels like it goes fast to the parent, which I think is the case.
Hmm.
But what is even more like amazing, how fast the development of the kid is.
Yeah.
And because that is suddenly sort of like overtaking my expectations every day.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Unbelievable. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your partner? She's well?
She's doing okay. I mean, it's with COVID, it's strange. Like her company has just moved into a new office building in Berlin, but they haven't even been there for a day, right?
Of
So
course.
so so it's a little strange, and like the daycares are still closed here, and so for the last 3 months, I have to look after my daughter in the mornings for like 6 hours, and it's challenging, not because I don't love the time with her, but like my usual mode of working was like to work 16 hours per day or something like
Yeah,
that.
right, right.
And as a self-employed person, that's kind of like what you have to do. Like you have to respond when somebody needs something from you, right?
Yeah.
And
That's what you're
so
doing. You're responding to somebody who needs something from you.
yeah.
They're just
Yeah, I
little.
know, I know, I know. But when it comes to making a living,
Yeah.
it's it's been quite stressful, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, but we, like I said, we have this beautiful apartment, and I think I'm in the best place I've ever been somehow. Um,
Cool.
so I'm not complaining. Like the only thing I still need is tenure.
I think everybody should get tenure.
Yes, exactly.
Then that'll just make life so much
Hey,
easier.
that's the title of your book, man.
Everybody gets tenure.
Okay, Henry. So
Anyway,
tell your family I said hi, and
yeah.
yeah.
I'll take care. Take care, man. See you soon.
See,
And
yeah.
we'll do this again real soon.
Yes, we'll do this again. Yes. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye bye.